All right, welcome to the Squirrel Circus podcast. I'm the Rainbow Squirrel. I'm joined by my co-host Ian and Andy, the
Hello,
Moss
hello.
Guardian. And today
Hi.
we'll be chatting with Carla Janelle. Carla, say hi to the audience.
Hi, I'm Carla. Um, okay. I don't know. I wanted to hear a little bit of your vision, Matt, before I start to, I don't know, get involved because I want to hear everything that you stand for before I start talking, you know?
That makes perfect sense. Well, the whole Rainbow Squirrel channel I started as a media project to try to develop and promote the ideas of liberty. So by
hmm
that I mean individual liberty, political liberty, economic liberty.
Real.
And I try to stand as closely as I possibly can to that ideal, to liberty. So that can get complicated sometimes. People say this liberty interferes with this other liberty, but that would be my driving core value for all discussions, especially in politics.
Okay, perfect. So I personally, we were gonna talk about capitalism and a little bit of socialism, I think,
Yes.
but personally, I do tend to go a little bit more towards the socialist side. I don't believe that much in the right, but I love hearing the ideas because I think that with different ideas we can reach a middle point where it's stable and it's not going to harm anyone, you know? So I personally I believe in the social liberal democratic movement. Um,
Okay.
What I mean by this is that I personally believe in equality before the law, the absence of privilege, for everyone to be seen and heard, a structured yet free society, humility, resources not being a privilege but a right, and putting humanity above materialism.
Okay. I guess one place to start is what do you mean with resources shouldn't be a privilege but a right?
So I think there's like three sectors that I believe shouldn't be just like a privilege to have, and that's healthcare, housing, and food. I think
Healthcare, housing, and food.
every human being should have the right to have those, despite their, I don't know, their income or anything else. Human beings deserve those three. And taxes, well, I think that capitalism is not distributing taxes in the best way possible. And yes, that's at fault of the government. But I think that through a better system, like I think we can get these kinds of things not as a privilege, but a right. And I don't know. I think that if we still charge for these kind of resources, it's kind of just exploitation and inhuman. And I don't know. I don't like it.
Well,
So you
the question there
basically
would
look for the government to kind of better its system to put priority on these three things, right? Okay.
hmm
Yeah. All right.
I mean, the question with rights becomes like when I hear right, I mean, what I hear is a legitimate use of force. Like it is right to use force. For example, you have a right to your body. It is right to use force to defend your body. You have a
hmm
right to your property. It is right to use force to defend your property. So when we say you have a right to healthcare, what we're saying is you have a right to use force to acquire healthcare. The question
hmm
becomes force against who? Against the doctors, for example? Should the doctors be forced to attend patients? Given that it's a
No.
right, of course.
hmm
So we shouldn't force the doctors.
No. What I'm trying to say with this is that, okay, we're not going to force these sectors, you know, I mean, production and the good, like the services that they're going to give us, those those should be paid by the government. So the government is a system that's, I personally think it's completely corrupt and people are scared. And the
Yeah,
United
I'm
States,
scared just hearing you talk about this. Like this is gonna put
exactly.
a target on my back.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
oh, that is scary. But I mean, getting back to the healthcare is a right thing. Again,
Mhm.
getting back to if rights are those things which is right to use force to acquire, then who should a force be used on to acquire healthcare? If it's not the doctors, it's going to be someone else.
The
And when
government.
you say, well, it should be the government should
Mhm.
be paying for healthcare. How does the government get its money?
It gets it through production and
The
supposedly the
government
companies,
produces stuff?
huh?
They get it through production? Like that would imply that the government makes a good and then they sell it
No,
on the
they get it
market
for
and then they get
like
it.
profits made by the production. Okay, hold on. I'm organizing. Okay. The companies hire people in order to help them produce whatever they need, right? And
Right.
then these
Voluntary
people
exchange.
paying, yeah, it's an exchange, but then these people are the ones that are paying the taxes. And a lot of these companies, like the heads of these companies, are getting away with not paying taxes. You know, they can evade it like a lot. For example, um, oh, Jeff Bezos. I mean, it's insane. He owns Amazon, and yet he doesn't pay taxes for his company being in so many countries, and he's a billionaire. I mean, Jesus Christ. I thought that when I saw his wedding, I literally wanted to smash my phone into the wall or something because it's just he could be using that money for so many more good things, and he's not. You know, he's not contributing, he's just exploiting. And that's what happens with big
But
companies like this.
like we will get to billionaires and tax structures.
Yeah,
But
I'm
before
getting
that, we
ahead.
agree that the government gets its money through taxes.
Hmm.
And the government, what is the government if not the monopolized institution of force?
Hmm.
Government doesn't get its money through production, it gets it through force.
Hmm.
And so, what we're essentially saying when we say, well, when you say, I don't say this, healthcare is a right, is force should be used against whoever to subsidize healthcare.
Mm, well, yeah, honestly, I think
And that's
that.
where the split would come in, because I would say
Mhm.
force is only ever acceptable, for the use of force is only ever acceptable in defense of people's person and property.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
What
so
could
when,
you
yeah,
please define force? Like what type of force are we talking about, or any type of force, or all types of force, or
force would
Mm,
be a threat or the exertion of power upon your person and property.
okay.
So we have, say, a limited resource, and that can be anything. It can be your house, your clothes, your body. If somebody tries to take your house or destroy your house uh,
Mhm.
using means that you do not approve of, that is force. If someone tries
Okay.
to take your clothes by means that you do not approve of, that's force. If someone tries to take your body by means that you do not approve of, that's force. And so I
Okay.
say force is only ever acceptable in a retaliatory fashion. You're trying to destroy my house. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to exert force on your person, on your property to stop you from using it to do that to my property. I'm going to exert force upon your person to stop you from taking my clothes.
Basically war.
okay. I
War,
mean,
but there are always two sides to war or conflict, or because it can be on a large scale or it can be on a minor scale. There's always aggressive force, the person that
Mhm.
starts the problem, and there's defensive force, the person that responds to the problem to stop the aggressor. And so
And you're
that's what I
saying
say.
defensive force is the only acceptable force.
Exactly. And in
So
order,
without the first attack, there is no defense. Therefore, what you're saying is that ideally no force should be best, no?
yeah, that would be a free and peaceful society, one where force
Okay.
isn't used at all. Now,
Thank you for your explanation.
thank you for
Okay.
asking. And and so that's my problem with the idea of these, what are often called positive rights, like healthcare, food, housing, that you
Mm-hmm.
are going past the barrier of only defensive force, and you're saying, no, we can actually use aggressive force in order to fund public housing,
Mm-hmm.
public healthcare, public food programs.
Yeah, but I'm not talking to a point of war. I mean, for example, what I
Kind of.
believe in, social democracy. I'm going to explain it. The belief that society should change from capitalism to socialism in a gradual, peaceful way, a system of government based on this belief. So, by that premise, we should be doing it gradually. I'm not saying tear down the system right now as it is and just let's unleash hell because that's not going to work. So I'm not saying that, I don't know, like I don't know, protesting doesn't have to be necessarily violent. I mean, it gets violent because people are desperate. They feel just so much anger and oppression and injustice that some of them do resort to these kinds of radical, uh, I don't know, protests. But I mean, I respect them, but I personally wouldn't want to go like on that side of the whole thing. I don't know. What I believe in is I think that there are certain systems that we do have to tear down. Like the government right now is extremely corrupt. Um, People are paying enough to just end democracy as it is because I feel like the people aren't voting anymore. It's just a matter of who has more money, who has more allies, and that's just going to be the president here. And
Wait, I think two questions arise from this. First is this gradual transformation from capitalism to socialism.
mhm,
Uh, we're defining capitalism as that system where force is exclusively used to protect persons and property and
mhm,
nothing else, and where people are freely allowed to trade that property.
mhm,
So first we have to justify how that should be phased out. And then we have to define socialism, because as far as I understand it, that means collective public control of the means of production. And that includes humans, public control
mhm,
of humans. And
mhm.
so that's where I say, even in theory, it sounds absolutely horrible for you to be owned by the government versus in the capitalist system, which I like, where you own yourself and you own your own property. And sure, different people have different levels of property, but it's better than everyone being the property of the state, which is the definition of slavery. Uh,
Yes.
so
Okay.
I don't see why we should transition from one to the other.
Yeah.
The other question is democracy. You've brought up democracy a few times here. And the
Mm-hmm.
question is, where should democracy end? Because it seems, going back to the previous example, that democracy shouldn't extend to the choices of individuals. You shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
owned by the collective. What gets done with your body should not be chosen by vote. And so there is a line there, but maybe there's a line further back. Maybe the public, the voters, shouldn't get to decide what happens with your property. Let's start with your personal property, your clothes, your glasses, your house. And when we get to house, we start talking about private property. It's more than personal property. It's property that generates wealth and that comes about from exchange. And so if the public shouldn't own your house, shouldn't get a democratic vote on your house, why should they get a democratic vote on your money? Why should they get a democratic vote on your stove? Why should they get a democratic vote on your factory if you're a factory owner? And by the
Yeah.
time we say, well, no, the public shouldn't be able to decide over your factory or your house or your clothes or your body, we're back to capitalism, aren't we?
Yes, a little bit, but can wait, are you those are the two questions?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Um, so I wrote down the definition of capitalism and socialism by like the fathers of these two like movements, which is Adam Smith for capitalism and of course Karl Marx for socialism.
I would dispute that. Karl
Oh
Marx
yeah,
for socialism. It's far older than
let's
him.
let's let's hear
it
what
is.
Carla has to say. I think let's hear the definitions. I think it would be good that we're all on the same page.
But
Oh,
I'll dispute the Marx thing later.
Yeah,
But go.
yeah. Hmm.
okay. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of philosophers that have like contributed way too much. But I don't know. He wrote Das Kapital, which is, like
And the Communist Manifesto. Yeah, key
yeah,
documents to the movement for sure.
yeah. So by capitalism, Adam Smith wrote down 5 pillars. Do you agree?
Let's see.
Okay. Which is economic liberty, for
Sure.
us to be free to pursue our own individual interests, so long as they don't violate the law. There's also private capital and competition, so private ownership of the property and capital with the liberty to use it as the individual sees fit.
Okay. So far, so
Okay,
good.
and creates competition in the market. That's also important. Then the other pillar is looking for the common good. Adam Smith talked a lot about the common good, but in this he says the economic freedom in pursuit of the greater good of humanity and create social order and tides in the market as the market increases. Sorry, I'm a little stuffy, so if I can't talk, it's because of that.
Don't worry, don't worry.
So long as it's done honestly. And lastly is the little intervention from the government. So the government does not make the decisions or supervises the private industry because, well, Smith believed that they did not have the knowledge in order to make decisions or contribute. So they left it completely to the professionals, the more knowledgeable, he described. So also, liberty was at the heart of capitalism, and by this, he believed that through liberty, humankind would strive to serve the greater good of society. He thinks that through a re- sovereign regime, the people in charge will not make the right decisions or interventions due to their ignorance of the structure and efficiency of the market. So, yeah, that's it
This is
basically
what
for.
I would say Adam Smith is a very primary thinker to the whole capitalist thing. And I like his five pillars. I have my own 7 pillars, and they're extremely similar.
Yeah.
Um, but that's where I would say there's a disparity between him and Marx, because the really, really early socialist thinkers would be more comparable to Adam Smith, someone like Charles Fourier or Robert Owen. If we're talking
Mhm.
about Marx, at that point, it's better to compare him to someone like Menger or to someone like Bastiat,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it's
I guess so. I mean,
the evolution
depending
of the
on,
theory.
yeah, I think it also depends on movements historically that they lived through. I mean, Smith got to live through the period of illustration, right? So that was the French Revolution, all the revolutions basically. So he got to live through that and abolishing the monarchy. Then Marx, um, there was like the second industrial revolution with which he was against mostly because he saw how hard the workers like
Wait,
contributed.
I don't think he was against it. I think he saw it as a step toward socialism, a step away from feudalism toward socialism. Marx had this idea of stages of history. So first there's primitive communism, and everyone's
Mhm.
doing great and hanging out. And then slavery comes in, and you have this first dialectic between the masters and the slaves. And then feudalism comes in, and that's stage three. And you have this dialectic between lords and serfs. And then capitalism comes in, and you have this dialectic between employers and employees. And then socialism comes in, the dictatorship of
Mhm.
the proletariat, and you have still a dialectic between the previous owners and the now dictatorial working class. And then the end stage is this perfect uh, stateless, moneyless, classless utopia. So for
Yeah.
Marx, capitalism was a necessary step away from feudalism towards the utopia. Capitalism produced the wealth so that socialism could redistribute it, so that communism could arise.
Now, and that I completely agree because yes. However, the socialist movement hasn't really been, I don't know, like properly advanced. I mean, look at Venezuela right now. I think we discussed earlier that it used to be one of the richest countries in the world, mostly because of the oil and the distribution like in all the countries. Now, I personally lived in Venezuela when I was a toddler, literally, and I didn't think much of it because I was a little kid, but looking back on it now, it was kind of crazy. I mean, first of all, the our school, it was extremely expensive, and it wasn't the best either, so that was kind of messed up. And then also I didn't realize how little we had in the supermarkets until I went back to Mexico and I was like, this is heaven. Mexico, by the way. I mean, that says a
Compared
lot.
to medieval Europe, it's heaven.
Yeah. So,
Like it's awesome. We have humidifiers in the fruit section. Like what the fuck?
yeah,
An
what the fuck?
ancient king would walk in and see that and be like, Is this a land of gods? What the
Yeah,
fuck?"
for real. Yeah. And also, my mom had to buy like the formula for babies or like toddlers. She had to buy that in bulk. Like she filled at least two suitcases just with that.
That must have
And
looked suspicious. Like,
oh,
oh,
it
you
was.
have two suitcases full of
Just a
white
ton
powder?
of white
Yeah,
powder.
yeah. It's kind of like I don't know, but no, she didn't get in trouble. I mean, I have other stories about that, but I'm not gonna talk about them here.
No, no, that's okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean. After I left at like the best possible time. I mean, it got to a point where my dad's company, which was Colgate Palmolive in Venezuela, the factory there, it was just so broke that it couldn't continue. So my father had to go back to Mexico in order to continue his job. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any income or anything. So after we left, I remember distinctly on the news that we saw the news of the president dying because he was attacked. And I remember asking my parents, like, what's the problem? I mean, I don't really get it. And well, they explained it in the best way possible for a little kid, which was, no, I mean, he was a liar and he he had a lot of power that he did not use for the greater good. And for me as a little kid, that made sense. But right now, looking at the socialist regime that they're carrying, yeah, hell is unleashed there. I mean, it's insane. And I
And
don't
it's
know if
not
it's,
just there. If you look at the vast majority of socialist countries, whether it be Venezuela,
yeah,
Cuba,
North Korea, man.
OG
Like,
Vietnam, North Korea,
yeah, it's
China
insane.
before reform, and
Yeah.
even after reform, the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany. Socialism has a really
Hmm.
consistent track record of bringing about hell on earth. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
a bit skeptical. I'm like, why would you want to do that?
Okay. With that, I just like, okay, I want to go back to my values and my beliefs, which is I think every human should be equal, right? And socialism, I don't know, it promises that, honestly. I mean, in theory, of course. I'm not saying it's worked in the past, but that's why I don't stand particularly with socialism. I have a democratic, social view on this. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
believe in socialism as a whole. I think that we can take a couple of things from different systems that could work. I don't know.
But
But
here's where I say, well, two things. I have two sort of questions. The first is on equality. What do we mean by everyone should be equal? Because at the same
okay.
time, one clearly wants a level of difference. I mean, you have
Hmm.
purple hair, I have green hair. Do we want
Hmm.
that to be the same? Everyone to have the same hair color?
No, of course not.
No, no.
What I mean
So,
by that is, oh, go.
sorry.
Sorry.
So that's a kind of equality we don't want. Do we want everyone to have the same computer?
I mean, if possible, yeah.
Really? What if you like MacBooks better and I like Windows better?
Oh, no, I'm not talking like that. Okay, I think
Okay.
I need to clarify it a little bit more. Sorry.
Yes, yes. But let
Okay.
me keep going with the differences that I
Yeah,
think you'll
go,
probably
go, go,
agree
go,
with.
go.
Should everyone have the same house? Same model house, same shape, same size, same lights? I mean, I have rainbow lights. I don't know if you can see the color is changing in the back, but
Well,
should everyone have the same house? Should everyone
mhm,
have the same car? Should everyone have the same jewelry, the same piercings in the same places? Should everyone have the same genetics? That's kind of what the Nazis were going for with their equality. Uh, so there clearly are so many differences that we
mhm,
still want people to have. We
mhm.
want diversity. We want variety. But what you mean with equality, I think, is something different than all of that.
Okay.
So that was my question. What do you mean by equality?
Okay. So I'm not saying that everyone should be forced to have the same things, but have the right to choose the same things, right? So I personally have grown up in honestly like a really privileged like point. I don't know. I've never had struggles, basically. So how did I get to this point where I realized that's not fair? Because I see how it's not fair. And if the government forced me to like force my dad in this case to pay more money in order to help the other people who are not as lucky, I think that's fair, you know? And my parents argue against this all the time. And I'm pretty sure like a lot of privileged people also argue against this. This is why they're mostly on the right. But I don't know. I don't agree. Like I think that distributing money in a way that it would help people just to get the fundamental needs, which is shelter or housing, access to food on a regular basis, and of course, well, healthcare. The
Okay.
same point. And
This this gets sort
of
of to what I was trying to point to. More so than equality, sounds like what you want is a baseline for people where They have access to the things you stated earlier. They have access to healthcare. They have access to housing. They have access to food. But here's where I raise the empirical example. Which system has produced greater access to healthcare, housing, and food? Capitalism or socialism? And
Well, in
empirically
this case,
speaking, capitalism has produced more access for more people for housing, healthcare, and food. Now, what it
okay.
hasn't produced, if you look at any metric of human prosperity, housing, healthcare, food, human development index, water, sanitation, literally anything, it has a positive correlation with capitalism. Capitalism performs better on all of those metrics. The only metric that it
Mhm.
performs worse on is equality. So
Okay.
if that's the choice, for more people to have more food, more housing, more healthcare, more water, or for people to be more equal, which one of those two is better?
Okay.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
And Rainbow Scroll talk about a baseline. You know, a baseline from which everyone has the same opportunities. I believe. I think what the socialists believe is that this baseline should be hired, right, by the government and by I don't know, depending if you're a democratic or an authoritarian um,
Mm,
leftist, but I believe this best baseline exists, right?
mhm.
And capitalism, it always exists. Like we all have the same opportunity to just go out and work. You know, we all have the maybe in some countries it's the baseline is just a lot lower, but the baseline is there, right? We all have the same opportunity to exist, let's say. And some systems have shown to raise the baseline, some systems have shown to lower the baseline. What I see is at least in the way the capitalist system has been managed through history, it seems like from this baseline, some people just for some reason get very high up, and this
Mhm.
kind of sucks all the resources from the rest of the people to be able to they themselves lift their own baseline, you know? So how I think this question is for
Mhm.
you, Rainbow Squirrel. How do you make it so that this doesn't happen?
Yes.
Mm, I would say the people should be, and this is why I'm against equality, people should be allowed to go up and down,
Yeah.
but it's a
But how
matter
do you
of
make it so
how
that it's
people.
not excessive? It's
I'm not
just
anyone to determine what's excessive and what isn't, and neither is the government. I think what matters is the way that people get rich. If people get rich through voluntary exchange, through the creation of value, through innovation, then I say let them become as rich as the market will let them. Because every single dollar that gets into your pocket in a true free market is somebody who valued what you're giving them more than the dollar that they gave you. In a free market system, why should we should be like, oh my God, that person created a lot of value for all of society, and that's why they're so rich. Now, when there are issues like the ones Carla pointed out, where the people are taxed, but the billionaires are not,
Mhm.
that's when I say there's a problem. When there are government subsidies for billionaire industries, that's where I would say there's a problem. When there are regulations that make it very easy for corporations, for massive multi-million dollar billionaire corporations, but very, very difficult for small businesses, that's when there's a problem. But you see, the problem is not in how high people are allowed to go, but in by which means are they allowed to go high or low?
yeah, that
You know,
makes
it's true
total
because it
sense.
rhymes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it
Okay.
just seems like it's inevitable that some people just get very high over the baseline and just some people just don't go very high. It just seems inevitable in the society that we live in.
In any society. Think of socialist societies. Like, sure, there's a greater degree of equality amongst the people. There are no rich people, but the politicians, oh man, Stalin. Stalin was very, very high up and the people were very, very low.
Yeah.
Hitler was very high up and the people were very, very low.
Okay, let's let
Maduro is
Carla
very,
Carla
very high
speak.
and the people are
Okay.
very, very low. But
Hi.
please speak, Carla.
Okay, again, I don't stand for socialism as a whole. I believe in social democracy, which is very different to socialism. And like a current example of this, of social democracy, is Switzerland. We always hear about Switzerland, like, oh my God, they have like free education and the education is really good. They have free healthcare and access to all these things, and they have equality. Gay people are allowed to do everything.
But they
I mean,
pay
it's
crazy taxes.
yeah,
Everything is
But wait, no,
crazy
not crazy
expensive.
taxes. Hold on.
but
Switzerland, on both
but
the freedom of the
Let
ease of
Carla
doing
finish.
no. Switzerland on both the economic freedom index and the ease of doing business index is one of the highest countries, always in the top five, always in the top five most capitalist countries.
yes, I that makes sense, but that's the issue.
Wait,
I mean,
what?
it's okay. My point being, yes, the capitalist countries have advanced a crap ton, but with other countries that do take some things from capitalism, they don't destroy it like in like all of it. They don't destroy everything, but they do realize that there are points that there should be some intervention, that privileged people are not that privileged and that they're contributing more to society, and they are they are meeting the basic needs without going bankrupt. So, I mean, it's insane how they've been able to build this, and it's not like out of this world to do this, okay? I don't think so. And if the capitalist system is not working anymore because the privileged are getting everything, like I think Ian mentioned that it is inevitable that society creates this, that people are more privileged and have more power, more money, and it becomes really materialistic. And in reality, if you're born into the wealth, then you're gonna be privileged all your life. And the working class don't have that opportunity. Most of them don't have that opportunity. And that's where I think that it's unfair. It's not equal for everyone. I mean, the people high up just keep getting higher up and leaving the working class to pay more, which is kind of what happened in the illustration period. And that Smith actually wrote against us. So I think that there's a little bit of like, I don't know, there's two sides of each story, but if it's handled properly, I think that it's very possible to create a society where the privileged are not that privileged, that everyone has a right to happiness, to, I don't know, to everything, healthcare, food, housing, and I forgot one pillar, which is education. Education is so important. So,
Right? I'd say
yeah.
it's too important to trust the government with it because it's
I
not going to
don't,
do a good job.
but it's not just about the government. It's about the people. The people are
Right?
voting. The government is intervening, just like making sure that the system is not corrupt and that every person's voice is being heard and contemplated on these issues. That's democracy, okay?
Mhm.
So that's how democracy should be handled. However, they've been handling it in a way that's a little bit more on the socialism side, which is not that bad because, yeah, socialism as a whole, I recognize that it does have a little bit of problematic issues,
A little
but
bit.
a lot bit.
Just a little bit of
But so
genocide.
does
Just a little bit.
capitalism. So does capitalism. So
But here's the thing. There's a bunch of things, sorry. First, the
okay.
more capitalist a country gets, the less atrocities you see, which is the opposite of what you see with socialism. The more socialist a country gets, the more atrocities you see. Switzerland, have you heard of the meme of a Swiss bank account? That's like a meme. That's like,
No, honestly, no.
yeah, that billionaires always put their money in Switzerland because it's not taxed and because it's very private. So
Mm.
this paradise of education and free healthcare and who knows what not is an extremely capitalist, billionaire-friendly country. And
Okay.
what I'm trying to point out there is these two things are not in contradiction. For the government to be able to provide these things that you want it to provide, healthcare, housing, food, it has to be able to take that wealth from somewhere. And
Mhm.
that can either be done through conquest and militarization, like the Nazis did, or it can foster an environment where there can be a free market, as there is in Switzerland. It's one of the freest markets in the world, at least. And then from the wealth that that market generates, take a little bit to fund those things. And that's not just true for Switzerland. It's true for Denmark. It's true for all the Scandinavian countries. They have a
Mhm.
strong capitalist foundation and a welfare state built on top of that. But they are careful not to let the welfare state consume all of the market. And so that's the key thing. This this idea that things would be more prosperous for people if the government were in more control of people's lives simply is not true. And there may be theories which leave things out that make it sound true, but empirically, we can see that it is not true. And we can back that up theoretically as well. If we just think there's human nature, which is selfish and greedy. There are
Mhm.
incentives in the market, just like there are incentives in government. The
Okay.
incentives in the market lead to production and the generation of wealth. The incentives in the government lead to inefficiency and corruption. And so the more we limit the government and the more we unleash the market, the better things are going to be for everyone. And then you look at the statistics, and that's what happens.
Okay. So, okay. So I think that here I don't know. Hold on. Okay. So democratic social, you argued that Switzerland just takes money from the billionaires because it's not taxed, right?
No, it's
But
taxed,
how
but less than
many of
almost anywhere else in the
these
world.
billionaires are actually, yeah, okay, contributing to that? And how many billionaires are not contributing to that? So
Wait,
I
it cut
think
out a
this is
little.
when we
Could you?
can start to argue, you know. What? Did it lag? What happened?
Yes. Could you
It's
repeat the
lagging a
Did I
last?
little
freeze?
bit.
Yeah, it lagged a bit, but if you can repeat like all you said, please.
Oh, damn. Okay. Okay.
That's all right.
So
That's all right.
he, so Rainbow Squirrel um argued that Switzerland gets its money from billionaires, but how many of those billionaires are contributing to Switzerland and how many of those billionaires are not contributing anything at all throughout the world? Like, okay, for example, Elon Musk,
Right?
uh, Jeff Bezos. There's also Donald Trump is also a billionaire. He's supposed to be president. He's insane.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's a lot of like corrupt billionaires that are not contributing anything, like at all, and they always get away with things, like not paying taxes, you know? I mean, Donald Trump, for example, he he, he
Wait, let's pause for a
buried
second.
one of his wives
Start
in a
from Donald
golf
Trump.
course. So it was considered a cemetery, then it was Donald Trump. Okay.
But last at Donald Trump.
So he paid. Okay, dude, why am I freezing so much? Okay.
Okay, I have to go in
So
a little bit.
he buried one of his wives. Okay. He
No pressure.
buried one
No
of his
pressure.
wives.
No pressure. I just have to go very soon.
Damn. Okay. He buried one of his wives in a cemetery, and therefore he doesn't have to pay taxes because legally cemeteries do not pay taxes. And another thing, okay, so do we, the people, generally have a right to say anything on these billionaires and how they're distributing the wealth? I think yes, because, okay, they're keeping all the
That's where I
wealth.
disagree.
I know.
That's where
Because
things become difficult.
it's like, how much money do you have to have before I get to tell you how to use it? Like, you have a certain amount of money right now that,
Mm-hmm.
as you yourself have stated, is kind of privileged.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get to put that up to a vote? Like, hey, your hair dye, that's a frivolous
Mm-hmm.
expense. You're being bourgeois.
Mm-hmm.
You should not be allowed to do that because the people have decided you don't get to use your wealth like that. And
I mean,
if you look at the past in socialist countries, that's exactly what happens. Minor
mm-hmm.
things like that in the petit bourgeois are targeted. And that's right next in line after going after the billionaires.
Okay. Yes, I understand that point of view, but also, okay, how can I explain this? The point of this is for everyone to start at the same level. So, yes, me from a privileged point where I did get to study in private schools, which is a better education from public schools, at least here in Mexico, I got very privileged doing that. But do I want other kids to have that privilege? Hell yeah, I do. And if I
Yes,
had to
me
sacrifice a
too.
couple of things, if I had to sacrifice a couple of things, I'll do it. I'll fucking do it. Because I see these people, how hard they fucking work, and the injustice that they face, and how the 1% of the population has all the fucking money, and then the rest of us, well, the rest of the working class, just like here, and they barely get anything, even though they work even more than the people up here, which,
But this is what I was saying before. If that wealth, no matter how much, no matter how disproportionate, is acquired through just voluntary means,
mhm,
absolutely nobody gets the right to say, hey, give us back the money we paid you for your services, and we'll decide how to use it. Like, we'll just take your service for free. And
mm,
I think, how do we wrap up? What would be your like last little
my final
I think
remark, um, I think that, I don't know, starting to change your point of view of what's normal or how the system works in right now. Um, maybe it's not as functional, and maybe we should try to do something a little bit different, even though it's scary. But if it's for the greater good, I think that it should be challenged.
And dare I argue, we should absolutely challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
We should try to change it, even if it's scary, and we should change it further in the direction of free markets and private property, as scary as that may be.
Okay.
Ian, Andy, anything to say to the subscribers?
Subscribe to become a
be happy.
subscriber
Yeah.
because we love
Subscribe.
our subscribers.
Subscribe,
Peace and
comment,
love.
leave a like, send it to your friends, and well, hopefully we'll have Carl on soon, some other time.
Yeah, thank you, Carla. Thank you
And
Yeah.
comment
for
your
joining
opinion
us.
because we like opinions.
We love
Yeah.
opinions. This was
Yep.
absolutely delightful. You're a fantastic sport, and we hope to have you here again.
Yeah.
Bye bye,
So
fellas.